My girlfriend tried to hide her friend's affair, so I told the husband and dumped her immediately. I edit documentaries for a living. Mostly independent stuff, investigations into small-town corruption, profiles of people society forgot, the occasional true crime piece that gets picked up by a streaming platform. The job has taught me one thing above everything else: people reveal themselves in the details they think no one notices. A twitch when a question lands too close, a pause that runs half a second too long, the way someone's eyes drift left when they're constructing a memory instead of recalling one. I've spent 12 years watching footage frame by frame, catching the micro expressions that expose the lie beneath the performance. It's made me a difficult person to deceive. Most people figure that out eventually. Harlow never did. We'd been together 3 years, met at a fundraiser screening for a documentary I'd cut about rural food deserts. She worked as a conservator at the Regional History Museum, the person who preserves old uniforms and antique furniture so they don't crumble to dust behind glass. Detailed work, patience intensive. I respected that about her. Our relationship was comfortable. She had the social calendar, the polished friend group, the dinner party invitations. I had the steady income, the apartment with the good light, the willingness to show up and play the quiet boyfriend role at her events. It worked, or I thought it did. Her circle was tight. College friends who'd graduated into mortgages and matching furniture sets. At the center of it all was Sutton, her best friend since freshman orientation. Sutton was a speech-language pathologist married to Graham, a guy who managed operations at a vineyard 2 hours north of the city. They hosted dinner parties where the wine was always excellent and the conversation was always performance art. Sutton was the kind of woman who made everything look effortless. Perfect hostess, perfect career, perfect marriage to a man who clearly adored her. At least, that was the version she sold to everyone. I never liked her much. Too polished, too aware of how she was being perceived at every moment. But she was Harlow's best friend, so I kept my observations to myself. Then one Thursday evening, Harlow came home acting like she'd swallowed something that wouldn't go down. She paced around the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it without taking anything out, poured a glass of water, didn't drink it. I was on the couch reviewing a rough cut on my laptop, but I was watching her over the screen the way I watch interview subjects who don't know the camera's still rolling. Finally, she sat down across from me and said, "I need to ask you for a favor. A small one." I closed my laptop. "What's up?" "It's about Sutton." I waited. Harlow's fingers were fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve, a tell I'd catalogued years ago. She only did that when she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. "She's going through some stuff with Graham. Their marriage has been complicated for a while." She took a breath. "She's been seeing someone. I know how it sounds, but it's not as simple as it seems. Graham's been emotionally checked out for years. She's lonely. She made a mistake." "Okay," I said, neutral, patient, letting her talk. "Last Thursday, she told Graham she was at a professional development conference in Ridgewood. She wasn't. She was with the other person." Harlow swallowed. "If Graham ever asks, and he probably won't, but if he does, could you just say you saw her at that coffee shop on Bleecker Street, around noon, just so her story holds up?" I let the silence stretch for 3 seconds. Then, "Sure, if he asks, I saw her at the coffee shop." Her relief was immediate. Too immediate. She practically melted into the chair, thanking me twice more than necessary, already moving on to ask what I wanted for dinner like the whole conversation had been about borrowing a phone charger. That was my first red flag. Not the affair. Affairs are common. Boring. Even. What bothered me was the intensity of her reaction, like she'd been holding her breath for days waiting to ask me this. Why would covering for her friend make her that nervous? I didn't ask. I just watched. Over the next few days, I noticed her phone was always face down on whatever surface she set it on. She flinched when it buzzed. Small things. The kind of details most people miss. I found the receipt on Sunday. It was crumpled in the pocket of her jacket when I went to hang it up. A restaurant called Vellum, 40 minutes outside the city. Prefix menu. 2 guests. Date stamp for the previous Wednesday. A night she told me she'd been working late at the museum. I photographed it, put it back, and said nothing. That night, I waited until she was asleep. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, screen facing the ceiling for once. I wasn't going to touch it, didn't need to. The notification lit up the screen on its own. Sutton's name. A text preview glowing in the dark. "Did you tell him yet? Does he suspect anything about US?" The screen went dark after 5 seconds. I lay there in the silence, staring at the ceiling, running the sentence back through my mind. Not about it. Not about her. About us. I didn't move. Didn't wake her. Just let the question settle into place like a puzzle piece I hadn't known was missing. What exactly was my girlfriend hiding? I didn't sleep that night. Didn't try to. I lay there until Harlow's breathing settled into the slow rhythm of deep sleep, then slipped out of bed and went to the living room with my laptop. The thing about editing documentaries is that you learn to approach information without emotion. Footage is footage. You don't decide what it means until you've seen all of it. You gather first, interpret later. The moment you let feelings drive the process, you start missing things. so I treated this like any other investigation. Subject: Harlow. Question: what is she hiding? Method: evidence collection. I started with our shared calendar. We'd synced them years ago for logistical reasons, coordinating who was picking up groceries, whose turn it was to handle the dry cleaning. Mundane stuff. But it also meant I could see every event she'd logged for the past 6 months. I cross-referenced her calendar entries against my own memory. Thursday the 14th, dinner with Sutton. I remembered that night. She came home late, said they'd lost track of time at some wine bar. Friday the 22nd, museum late shift. She'd texted me around 9 saying she was stuck recataloguing a new acquisition. Wednesday the 3rd, working late, don't wait up. The pattern was there once I looked for it. 1 or 2 nights a week, every week, for at least 4 months. Always vague. Always solo. Always with a reason I had no way to verify. Next, I checked our shared email. We'd set it up years ago for bills and subscriptions, the boring infrastructure of cohabitation. I hadn't logged in for months. Neither had she, apparently, because sitting in the sent folder was a forwarded confirmation she'd clearly meant to send from her personal account. Booking confirmation. The Wren House Inn, 40 minutes outside the city. Thursday evenings, 6 p.m. reservation for the private dining room. 2 guests, prepaid. The reservation was under her name, not Sutton's, Harlow's. I screenshot it, saved it to a folder on my desktop, and kept digging. The next morning, I told Harlow I had a location scout for a potential project, a bed and breakfast that might work for an interview backdrop. She barely looked up from her coffee, just nodded and said she'd be home late again. Museum stuff. I drove to the Wren House Inn. It was exactly the kind of place you'd pick for an affair. Quiet, secluded, a converted farmhouse with a prix-fixe restaurant that catered to couples who wanted privacy. I parked in the lot and walked in like I belonged there. The front desk was staffed by a woman in her 50s who looked like she'd seen everything and judged none of it. I gave her my cover story, documentary editor, looking for locations with character, mind if I take a look around? She was happy to chat. Small businesses love free publicity. I asked about the private dining room. She confirmed it had been booked regularly on Thursday evenings for the past few months. Same party each time. Always paid cash after the first reservation. Lovely couple, she said. Very private. Never any trouble. I smiled and thanked her for her time. On my way out, I stopped by the guest book near the entrance. Flipped back a few pages. There it was, Harlow's handwriting. I'd seen it on grocery lists and birthday cards for 3 years. I'd recognize it anywhere. She wasn't just covering for Sutton. She was booking the rooms herself. But that still didn't explain the text. Does he suspect anything about US? If Harlow was just the logistics coordinator for Sutton's affair, why would Sutton phrase it that way? I needed more. That Friday, Harlow mentioned she had a gallery opening to attend. Some artist friend from her museum circles. She'd be back late, don't wait up. The usual script. I told her I had an edit session running long. Then I followed her. She didn't go to any gallery. She drove to a wine bar in the Arts District, a sleek place with exposed brick and dim lighting. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, Sutton arrived. They hugged outside like old friends do. Then a third person joined them. A man, mid-30s, dark hair, easy smile, the kind of deliberately casual style that suggested he thought about his appearance more than he wanted people to know. I didn't recognize him. They went inside together. I watched through the window as they settled into a corner booth, laughing, comfortable, 3 people who clearly knew each other well. An hour later, Sutton left alone. She checked her phone as she walked to her car, probably texting Graham some excuse about where she'd been. But Harlow didn't leave with her. Harlow left with him. I watched them walk 2 blocks east, his hand on the small of her back, her head tilted toward him as she laughed at something he said. They stopped in front of a boutique hotel called the Olcott. He opened the door for her. She walked in without hesitation. They didn't come out. I sat in my car for another 40 minutes, engine off, watching the entrance. My phone buzzed once, a text from Harlow, opening running late. Might not be back until midnight. Love you. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I screenshot it, added it to the folder, and drove home. My girlfriend wasn't just enabling Sutton's affair. She was having one of her own, with the same man. I didn't confront her that night. Didn't pace around the apartment rehearsing accusations. Didn't pour myself a whiskey and spiral into some wounded monologue about betrayal. I went home, opened my laptop, and got to work. Emotion is a luxury you can't afford when you're building a case. I learned that cutting a documentary about a corrupt city councilman who'd embezzled funds for 6 years. The journalist who broke the story told me something I never forgot. Anger makes you sloppy. Evidence makes you untouchable. So I set my feelings aside and approached this the same way I'd approach any edit. Gather the footage. Organize the timeline. Let the material tell the story. Over the next 5 days, I compiled everything. The hotel receipts from the Wren House Inn, dates, times, Harlow's name on the booking confirmations. I'd saved the screenshots from our shared email, but I went back and photographed the guest book signature during a second visit. Her handwriting, undeniable. The photos I'd taken outside the wine bar. Harlow, Sutton, and the mystery man, later identified as Asher Caldwell, a personal chef who lived 2 doors down from Sutton and Graham. I found his Instagram through Sutton's tagged photos. Private account, but his profile picture matched the man I'd watched walk my girlfriend into a hotel. Speaking of Sutton's Instagram, she'd forgotten to scrub one post from 8 weeks ago. A blurry shot of her and Asher in a back alley behind some bakery, holding hands, tagged with a location I didn't recognize. She'd made the account private since then, but I'd screenshot it during an earlier scroll through Harlow's phone when she'd left it unlocked on the kitchen counter. Sloppy, both of them. The restaurant receipt from Vellum, the one I'd found in Harlow's jacket. 2 guests, prefix menu, date stamped for a night she claimed she was working late. The text from Sutton. Did you tell him yet? Does he suspect anything about US? Screenshot, timestamped. And the crown jewel, a voicemail Harlow had left Sutton 3 weeks ago that I found by scrolling through her call log while she was in the shower. She'd saved it to her own phone for some reason, maybe as a reminder of the story they'd agreed on. I played it once, recorded it on my laptop, and put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Her voice, nervous and rushed. Hey, it's me. Sutton needs this to stay quiet. Just a little longer. Graham can't find out about any of it. Call me back when you get this. About any of it. Not about her affair. About any of it. Because there was more than one affair to hide. I organized everything into a single folder. Dated. Labeled. A complete timeline of deception spanning 4 months. If this were a documentary, it would be airtight. No holes. No ambiguity. Just the facts, laid out in sequence, impossible to deny. Now I needed to decide what to do with it. The answer came on Wednesday, when Harlow mentioned a rooftop party happening Saturday night. A friend of hers had just gotten a promotion, and the whole group was celebrating at some venue with a skyline view. Sutton would be there. Graham would probably be working late at the Vineyard, as usual. Public venue. Harlow's entire social circle in attendance. Witnesses who would remember everything. Perfect. But I wasn't going to just expose Harlow. That would be satisfying, sure, but incomplete. Sutton was the other half of this equation. The married woman who'd been cheating on a decent man for months while her best friend provided cover and shared the same lover. Graham deserved to know, and he deserved to know first. Friday night, 11:58 p.m. Harlow was asleep in the bedroom. I sat at my desk, the folder open on my screen, a blank message to Graham waiting in another tab. I typed 5 words, "You deserve the truth." Then I attached everything. The photos, the receipts, the voicemail recording, the screenshot of Sutton's Instagram post. 4 months of lies, compressed into a single email. I read it over once. No emotion, no accusations, just evidence, delivered without commentary. I hit send. Saturday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Graham's name on the screen. I opened the message. I got everything. I believe you. I'm going to confront her tonight after the party. A pause, then a second message. But what about Harlow? Does she know you know? I typed back without hesitation. She has no idea, and I'm handling that myself. Tonight, at the party. 3 dots appeared. Then his reply. Good luck. And Miles, thank you. I mean it. I set the phone down and checked the time. 6 hours until the rooftop. 6 hours until Harlow's entire world collapsed in front of everyone she'd ever tried to impress. I spent the afternoon reviewing my notes, rehearsing nothing, preparing everything. When Harlow came home to change for the party, I was sitting on the couch, laptop closed, expression neutral. You're coming tonight, right? She asked, touching up her lipstick in the hallway mirror. I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. The rooftop venue was exactly the kind of place Harlow's circle loved. Exposed brick accent walls, string lights draped between potted trees, a bar with craft cocktails that cost $18 each. The whole aesthetic screamed we've made it to anyone willing to listen. I arrived with Harlow at 8. She was in her element immediately, hugging friends, complimenting outfits, gliding through the crowd like she belonged at the center of it. I hung back and played my usual role. Quiet boyfriend. Background furniture. The guy who showed up but never demanded attention. Tonight, that worked in my favor. I spotted Sutton near the bar, holding a glass of rosé and laughing at something a woman next to her had said. She looked immaculate, as always, hair perfect, dress expensive, the picture of a woman with absolutely nothing to hide. She caught my eye and gave me a polite wave. I nodded back, friendly, unremarkable. She had no idea Graham had already seen everything. I checked my phone. No new messages from him. He was waiting until after the party to confront her, which meant Sutton would spend the next few hours performing the role of perfect wife one last time. There was something almost poetic about that. I nursed a single drink for an hour, watched Harlow work the room, listened to conversations I didn't care about, waited. Around 9:30, I decided it was time. I crossed the rooftop to where Harlow was standing with 2 friends, mid-story about some disaster at the museum involving a damaged textile. She saw me approaching and smiled, reaching out to touch my arm. Hey, babe. Having fun? Can I talk to you for a second? I kept my voice even. Casual. Just need to ask you something. Sure. She excused herself from the group and followed me toward the railing at the edge of the rooftop. The city sprawled below us, indifferent. When we were far enough from the crowd, I pulled out my phone and opened the folder. "What's this?" she asked, still smiling. I handed her the phone without a word. She looked at the screen. The smile faltered. I watched her swipe through the images, the hotel receipts, the photo of her and Asher outside the Alcott, the screenshot of her text to Sutton. Her face went pale. "Miles," her voice cracked. "This isn't, you don't understand. It's complicated. Sutton was going through something, and I was just trying to help her, and things got." "Stop." She flinched like I'd raised a hand. "I'm not here to listen to explanations," I said. "I'm not here to negotiate. I watched you walk into a hotel with Asher Caldwell last Friday. I have the receipts you booked under your own name. I have the voicemail where you told Sutton to keep everything quiet." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. "We're done," I said. "That's not a discussion. That's a fact. Miles, please." She grabbed my arm, voice dropping to a frantic whisper. "Can we just go somewhere and talk about this? I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. We can work through this. People work through things like this all the time." I pulled my arm free. "You didn't make a mistake. You ran a logistics operation for 4 months. You booked hotels. You coordinated alibis. You lied to my face over and over again while you were sharing a man with your best friend." I took my phone back from her trembling hand. "There's nothing to work through." I turned and walked back toward the group. Harlow scrambled after me, heels clicking against the concrete. "Miles, wait, don't do this." I stopped in front of her friends. 5 faces turned toward me, curious, confused. I saw Sutton at the edge of the group, wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. "I'm going to keep this brief," I said. "Harlow has been having an affair for the past 4 months. So has Sutton. Same man. They've been covering for each other the entire time." Silence. Then whispers. Then Sutton stepped forward, face tight with controlled panic. "That's ridiculous. Miles, I don't know what Harlow told you, but..." I held up my phone. "Graham already has everything. Photos, receipts, the voicemail. Check your messages." Sutton's phone buzzed in her clutch. She didn't move to answer it. She didn't have to. Her expression told the whole story. I turned back to Harlow, who was standing frozen, tears streaming, surrounded by friends who were already stepping away from her like she was contagious. "Your things will be boxed by Monday," I said. "Don't contact me. Don't send anyone to explain. Just be gone." I walked toward the elevator without looking back. The doors opened immediately, like the universe was cooperating for once. As they slid closed, I heard the chaos erupting behind me. Voices overlapping. Someone saying, "Oh my God." Harlow calling my name, desperate, ignored. The doors shut. Silence. My phone buzzed before I reached the lobby. "Graham, Sutton just called me in hysterics. She's confessing everything. Packing a bag right now. Thank you, Miles. Seriously." Then, 30 seconds later, a second message. "There's something else she told me. About Harlow. Something you need to know. Call me when you can." I stared at the screen as the elevator reached the ground floor. What else could there possibly be? I called Graham from my car, still parked 2 blocks from the venue. He picked up on the second ring. "Miles." His voice was raw but steady. The voice of a man who'd been gutted but was still standing. "Thanks for calling back. What did Sutton tell you?" A long exhale on the other end. "Everything." She broke down completely. Couldn't stop talking once she started, like a dam finally cracking. He paused. "She told me how the whole thing began. With Asher. And? It wasn't her idea. None of it was." I sat back in my seat. "What do you mean?" "Harlow introduced them. Sutton and Asher. About 5 months ago, at some dinner party Harlow hosted when you were out of town for a project." Graham's voice tightened. "According to Sutton, Harlow had already been sleeping with him for weeks at that point. She practically orchestrated the whole thing. Told Sutton that Asher was interested in her, that it could be their little secret, that no one would ever find out." I processed that slowly. Harlow hadn't just participated. She'd recruited. "Sutton says Harlow set up the entire system," Graham continued. "The hotel bookings, the alibis, the schedules. She made Sutton feel like they were in it together. 2 women escaping boring relationships, sharing something exciting. But really, Harlow was using Sutton as cover. If anyone ever got suspicious, Sutton's affair would be the one that surfaced first. Harlow designed it that way." I almost laughed. "Almost. She played her own best friend. Played all of us." Graham's voice was bitter now. "I thought I knew my wife. Turns out I didn't even know who was pulling the strings." We talked for another 10 minutes. He thanked me again, genuinely, without any awkwardness about the fact that I'd just detonated his marriage. I told him he didn't owe me anything. He said he'd be in touch once the dust settled. I hung up and drove home through empty streets, replaying the conversation in my head. Harlow wasn't just a cheater. She was an architect. She'd constructed the entire affair network, positioned herself at the center, and built in a fall guy in case everything collapsed. Sutton was the shield. Asher was the entertainment. Graham and I were the marks. And she'd done it all while sleeping next to me every night, kissing me goodbye every morning, texting me love you while walking into hotel rooms with another man. I wasn't angry anymore. I was impressed, in a clinical way. It takes a specific kind of person to maintain that level of deception for that long. Sociopath might be too strong a word, but not by much. The fallout over the next 2 weeks was swift and thorough. Sutton's carefully curated life disintegrated in public. Word spread through her professional circles. The parent community at the clinic where she worked started whispering, then stopped bringing their kids all together. Her Instagram went private within 3 days. Then it disappeared entirely. Graham filed for divorce. Kept the house. Sutton moved into a rental apartment on the other side of the city, alone and radioactive. Asher, predictably, vanished. I checked his Instagram once out of curiosity. New city, new photos, new woman already appearing in his stories. Guys like him always land on their feet. They're cockroaches in nice shoes. And Harlow? Harlow's world collapsed the way a building does when you pull out the load-bearing walls. One by one, her friends stopped returning calls. The mutual acquaintances we'd shared quietly unfollowed her. Her museum job became untenable after a colleague heard the story and raised concerns about her professional judgment. She was let go within 10 days. Budget cuts. Officially. Everyone knew the real reason. I watched it all from a distance. Didn't post anything. Didn't comment on anyone's social media. Didn't explain myself to the curious friends who reached out asking what had happened. When people asked, I kept it simple. She cheated. I left. That's all. The restraint made me look dignified. It made Harlow look desperate when she tried to spin a counter-narrative about how I'd overreacted and humiliated her unfairly. Nobody bought it. She tried to contact me once. Showed up at the apartment on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the rooftop. I saw her through the peephole, mascara smudged, hair unwashed, wearing the same jacket she'd had on the night I found the restaurant receipt. She knocked for 5 minutes. Called my name twice. I didn't answer. Eventually, I texted her, "Your boxes are in the lobby with the doorman. We're done. Don't come back." She waited outside for another hour. I put on headphones and kept working on an edit. When I checked again, she was gone. The doorman told me later she'd cried the whole time she was loading boxes into her car. I felt nothing. 2 days after that, I signed a lease on a new apartment. Fresh start. No memories of her in any corner. I spent a weekend packing, organizing, shedding 3 years of accumulated life like dead skin. It was almost finished. Almost clean. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. The message was from Sutton. "We need to talk. It's urgent." I didn't respond. 30 seconds later, a second message. "I'm pregnant, and I'm going to tell everyone it's yours unless you hear me out." I stared at the screen for a long moment. I'd never touched Sutton, never been alone with her for more than 5 minutes in 3 years. The claim was absurd, a desperate bluff from a woman whose life I'd helped destroy. But accusations don't need to be true to cause damage. They just need to be loud. My phone buzzed again. A third message. Saturday, 2 p.m. The cafe on Whitmore. "Come alone, or I start making calls." I set the phone down and looked around my half-packed apartment. I thought I was done with this. Thought I'd walked away clean. Apparently, Sutton had other plans. I spent the next 2 days preparing. Not panicking. Not worrying. Preparing. Sutton's threat was a bluff. I knew that with absolute certainty. But certainty isn't enough when someone's willing to lie publicly. You need proof. Documentation. The kind of evidence that makes accusations collapse on contact. So I built my defense the same way I built my case against Harlow. Methodically. Thoroughly. Without emotion. First, I pulled my calendar from the past 6 months. Every work trip, every location scout, every overnight edit session. All of it logged and verifiable. Then I cross-referenced the dates with my travel records, flight confirmations, hotel receipts, gas station charges from when I drove to interview locations. The timeline was clear. During the only window that could possibly matter, the period when Sutton would have had to conceive for the pregnancy to be real and mine, I was in Austin for 11 days, cutting a documentary about a retired rodeo circuit. I had flight records, hotel receipts, and a client who could confirm I never left the edit bay past 8 p.m. I also called Graham. "She told you she's pregnant?" His voice was exhausted. Unsurprised. Claims it's mine. Which is impossible. She told me the same thing during our separation mediation. Said it was Asher's. He laughed bitterly. Her story changes depending on who she's trying to manipulate. Has she actually confirmed the pregnancy? Doctor's visit? Anything official? Not that I've seen. My lawyer asked for documentation. She couldn't produce any. That told me everything I needed to know. Saturday, 2 p.m. The cafe on Whitmore. I arrived 10 minutes early. Chose a table near the window with good sight lines. Ordered a coffee I didn't plan to drink. And I set my phone on the table. Voice memo app open. Recording. One party consent state. I checked. Sutton walked in at 2:07. She looked like a woman who'd aged 5 years and 3 weeks. Hair pulled back. No makeup. The polished veneer completely gone. She sat across from me without greeting. You came. You threatened me. I wanted to hear you say it to my face. Her jaw tightened. I'm not threatening. I'm telling you the truth. I'm pregnant. And, when? She blinked. What? When did we supposedly sleep together? Give me a date. Silence. Her eyes darted left, constructing, not recalling. I'd seen that tell 1,000 times in interview footage. It was, a few months ago, at the dinner party, when Harlow was busy and you and I were alone in the kitchen. Which dinner party? The one at our house. In March. I nodded slowly. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd prepared. I was in Austin from March 8th through March 19th, I said, turning the screen toward her. Flight confirmation. Hotel receipts. A signed contract from the production company confirming my on-site presence. I wasn't at any dinner party. I wasn't in this city. Sutton stared at the screen. Her face went pale. I also spoke to Graham. I continued. He says you told him the same thing during mediation, that you're pregnant, but you couldn't provide documentation. No doctor's confirmation. Nothing. She didn't respond. So here's what I think happened. I leaned back in my chair. You're not pregnant. Or if you are, it's Asher's, and you know he's long gone. You wanted to hurt me the way I hurt you, so you invented a story you thought would cause maximum damage. Her lip trembled. For a moment, I thought she might cry. Then her expression hardened. You destroyed my life, she said quietly. My marriage, my career, my friendships, everything. No. I shook my head. You destroyed your life. You lied to your husband for months. You carried on an affair with a man your best friend recruited for you. I just delivered the evidence. What happened after that was the natural consequence of your own choices. She stared at me for a long moment. Then her shoulders sagged. I'm not really pregnant, she admitted. I wanted you to feel something. To know what it's like to have everything ripped away. I already know what that feels like, I said. I found out my girlfriend was sleeping with someone else and lying to my face for 4 months. The difference is, I didn't threaten innocent people afterward. I dealt with it and moved on. I stood up, pocketed my phone, recording still running, and looked down at her. Don't contact me again. Don't contact Graham. And don't try this with anyone else, because I have this entire conversation documented. I paused. Goodbye, Sutton. She didn't respond. I walked out without looking back. 3 months later, the documentary I'd been editing got picked up by a streaming platform. Solid reviews. Enough buzz to bring in new clients. I moved into the new apartment. Clean lines. No memories. A place that was entirely mine. Graham and I grabbed drinks once, about 6 weeks after everything settled. He was doing better. Dating someone new. Rebuilding. I don't know if I ever said this properly, he told me, but thank you for telling me the truth when no one else would. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, but you saved me years. He raised his glass. To moving forward. I clinked mine against his. To moving forward. Harlow, I heard through the grapevine, had moved back to her parents' place upstate. No job. No prospects. The social circle she'd spent years cultivating had evaporated completely. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a garden center and had deleted all her social media. I didn't feel satisfaction exactly. Just closure. She'd thought I was the safe one. The quiet boyfriend who'd never looked too closely, never asked the wrong questions, never put the pieces together. She was wrong. I finished unpacking the last box on a Sunday evening, standing in my new living room as the sun went down. No ghosts in the corners. No lies echoing off the walls. Just silence, and the knowledge that I'd handled it right. I poured myself a drink, sat on my new couch, and opened my laptop to start reviewing footage for the next project. Life goes on. Mine was just getting started again. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.